We live in a world that constantly demands more success, more possessions, more control. But what if true freedom isn't about adding but subtracting? What if the key to a fulfilled life isn't in grasping tighter, but in letting go? At Stoic Echoes US, we explore the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, not as a distant philosophy, but as a practical guide for modern life. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means freeing yourself from the weight of things that no longer serve you. It's about shifting focus from what's outside your control to what truly matters. In today's video, I'll walk you through 7 powerful ways to release what holds you back, so you can step into a life of quiet strength, unshakable peace, and true personal freedom. These aren't just theories, they're hard-earned lessons that can reshape your perspective and transform the way you live. Stay with me, because this might just be the breakthrough you didn't know you needed. 1. The art of letting go, finding freedom in less. I want to begin with a question that may seem simple but carries immense weight. What is taking up too much space in your life? It could be the clutter in your home, the weight of expectations from others, or the endless loop of self-doubt and comparison. We often think that more success, more possessions, more validation will bring us fulfillment. But have you ever noticed that the more you accumulate, the heavier life feels? The more you hold on, the more you fear losing what you have. Stoicism teaches us a truth that is both liberating and difficult to accept. Happiness is not found in gaining more, but in letting go of what we do not need. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." That quote didn't resonate with me at first. I was too caught up in chasing success, believing that once I reached a certain point, once I had the right job, the right income, the right recognition, then I would be free. But when I finally got there, I realized I had only built a different kind of prison. A life dictated by expectations, stress, and the constant fear of losing what I had worked so hard to obtain. There came a moment when I made a choice to let go. I walked away from the things that no longer served me, a high-pressure job, relationships that drained me, and even my own obsession with proving my worth. For the first time, I allowed myself to experience stillness. No deadlines, no notifications, no external voices telling me who I should be. And at first, that silence was unsettling. It felt like I had lost something, but then something unexpected happened. I started to feel lighter. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." As I let go of what I could not control, I began to notice the beauty in simplicity. The warmth of the morning sun, the peace in an uncluttered space, the clarity that comes when you are no longer drowning in distractions. My mind was no longer filled with the noise of wanting more. It had room for what truly mattered. So, how do we live with less? Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Start by practicing stillness. Take a few minutes each day to do nothing. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but in that space you will begin to see what truly occupies your mind. Next, declutter. Not just your home, but your commitments, your relationships, even your thoughts. Not everything and everyone deserves space in your life. And finally, simplify your focus. Instead of an endless to-do list, choose just 3 things each day that truly matter. You will be surprised how much more fulfilling life becomes when you stop scattering your energy. I know letting go is hard. We cling to things because they make us feel safe, even when they weigh us down. But Seneca reminds us, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. When you free yourself from unnecessary burdens, you don't just find peace, you find who you were meant to be. So ask yourself, if today you only kept what truly mattered, what would your life look like? Let this question guide you forward, because when less becomes everything, you don't lose, you gain. 2. The beauty of letting go, finding peace in release. Imagine standing beside a quiet river, a small leaf resting in your hand. That leaf holds your burdens, the worries that weigh you down, the expectations that suffocate you, the fears that whisper you're not enough. You grip it tightly, afraid to let go. But the longer you hold on, the more it crumbles, withering under the pressure of your grasp. What if, instead of clinging, you simply opened your palm and let it drift away? Would that be a loss, or would it be liberation? Letting go isn't about detachment in the way most people think. It's not about becoming numb or indifferent. It's about embracing life's natural rhythm, the constant ebb and flow, the inevitable change. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Observe how all things are constantly changing, and that the universe delights in renewal." When you stop resisting, when you stop trying to force things to remain as they are, you don't lose, you gain. You gain clarity, you gain peace. You gain the freedom to move forward without the weight of what no longer serves you. Have you considered this? Often, it's the act of holding on that causes the deepest suffering. A relationship that has outlived its joy, yet you stay because the fear of loneliness grips you tighter than the reality of discontent. A job that drains your spirit, but you refuse to walk away because failure seems more unbearable than exhaustion. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. I once clung to a project I had poured my heart into, convinced that abandoning it would mean abandoning a piece of myself. But the more I forced it, the more I lost sight of why I started in the first place. Then, one day, I asked myself, does continuing this still bring me joy? The answer was no. So, I let go. And in that moment, I felt an unexpected lightness, as if I had been carrying a heavy backpack on a journey I no longer wished to take. Epictetus reminds us that while we cannot control life's unfolding, we can control our response. Instead of resisting the current, why not trust the flow? The river knows where it's going. How do you practice letting go in a stoic yet heartfelt way? Embrace the art of losing. Each day choose one small thing to release. Maybe it's frustration over a rude stranger. Maybe it's disappointment in yourself for not being perfect. Instead of gripping these moments, let them pass, like leaves on a river. You could hold on, but why would you when freedom is just a breath away? Practice the art of impermanence. Every morning, remind yourself that everything you have today might not be there tomorrow. Not as a source of fear, but as a way to love the present more deeply. When you understand that nothing is permanent, you stop clinging and start cherishing. Write an unsent letter. If there's something or someone you struggle to let go of, write it all down. Pour every thought, every emotion onto the page. Then, don't send it. Burn it. Tear it up. Release it in a way that marks an ending, not for them but for you. Seneca once said, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." What if you saw today as a fresh start, free from yesterday's burdens? What if, instead of fearing loss, You embrace the space it creates. Because when you let go, you don't lose, you rise. What about you? What are you ready to release today? What weight will you set down so that you can finally move freely? Share your journey in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if this video speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe. Together, let's walk this path to clarity, to freedom, to becoming who we were meant to be. 3. Breaking the chains you cannot see. Have you ever felt trapped, yet when you look around, there are no walls, no locked doors, just open space? It's like standing in a field with no fences, yet somehow you cannot move forward. The truth is, no one is holding us back. Not our bosses, not society, not even the people whose opinions we fear. The chains that bind us are the ones we've placed upon ourselves. Imagine walking into a crowded room, convinced that every eye is analyzing your every step, every word, every mistake. You hesitate, you shrink, you mold yourself into what you think they expect of you. But here's the reality. No one is actually watching. They are too consumed by their own invisible chains, their own fears, their own self-doubt. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own. We crave our own happiness, yet we let the weight of others' judgments dictate our lives. Isn't that strange?" Recognizing the invisible chains. I remember the moment I realized I was carrying these chains. It was when I turned down a job opportunity, not because I wasn't qualified, but because I feared I wasn't enough. I told myself it wasn't the right fit, that I needed more time, more preparation. But the truth, I was afraid of failure, afraid of the quiet, disappointed looks if I didn't measure up. But then I asked myself, what if I'm wrong? What if I stop assuming the worst and just try? The moment I let go of that fear, I felt an unexpected lightness, as if I had been carrying a backpack full of stones I never needed. And the irony? That fear had held me back from something even greater. When I finally took a chance, I found not just a better opportunity, but a version of myself that was stronger, freer, unshackled. How do we break free from these chains? Recognize them. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid? Fear disguises itself as rationality, but if you listen closely, you'll hear its whispers. What if you fail? What will they think? What if you're not good enough? But here's the truth. Perfection is a lie that keeps you stuck. It makes you feel like you'll never be enough, even when you already are. Try this simple exercise. Write down 3 things that make you feel trapped. Maybe it's societal expectations, the fear of letting someone down, or the pressure to always be achieving. Then ask yourself, if I let this go, what's the worst that could happen? More often than not, the worst-case scenario is temporary discomfort. But in exchange, you gain freedom. Practice paradox. If you fear rejection, put yourself in situations where you might be rejected. Ask for a discount at a store that never offers one. Reach out to someone knowing they might say no. The more you do this, the more you'll realize rejection isn't a cage. It's just a moment. And once you stop fearing it, those invisible chains loosen until they disappear entirely. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. We fear failure so deeply that we never start. We fear judgment so much that we silence our own voices. But in reality, what we fear is rarely as terrifying as we imagine. And even when failure happens, it's just a step, not the end. Imagine this: waking up one morning with no pressures, no fears, just you and your path. No hesitation, no second guessing, no invisible chains holding you back. And the best part? You don't need permission to break free. The key has been in your hands all along. Invisible chains only exist if you believe in them. The moment you stop, you'll realize you were free all along. Now is the time to break them. Now is the time to live the life that has always been yours. 4. Freedom without departure. The power of perspective. We often assume that to break free from discomfort, we need movement, a new city, a fresh start, a drastic change. We think happiness lies in a different place, a different job, or a different version of ourselves. But the Stoics offered an alternative path. You don't need to go anywhere to find peace. You just need to release what holds you back. This is the art of leaving without moving an inch. I once met someone who was constantly searching for escape. She moved from city to city, convinced that each new place would bring her fulfillment. But no matter where she went, the same feelings of dissatisfaction followed. It wasn't long before she realized that the problem was never the location. It was her own inability to be at peace within herself. How many times have we done the same, blaming our unhappiness on external circumstances, believing that if only things were different, we'd finally be content? Are you truly trapped, or is it just a state of mind? Seneca once wrote, "A consciousness of wrongdoing is the first step to salvation." In other words, awareness is the first key to freedom. If you feel stuck, the question to ask isn't, "How do I escape?" but, "What am I refusing to see?" Maybe it's not your job that's draining you, it's how you approach it. Maybe it's not your relationship that's suffocating you, it's the fear of being alone. Maybe it's not the city you live in that's uninspiring, it's the way you see it. The walls we feel around us are often ones we've built ourselves. How to leave without moving. Shift your perception. When frustration arises, pause. Ask yourself, is the situation the problem, or is it my reaction to it? Most of the time we aren't trapped by circumstances, but by our interpretation of them. Detach from the noise. Imagine you are an observer watching your own life. If someone disrespects you, instead of reacting immediately, step back. Would their words matter if you viewed them as mere background noise in a larger story? By seeing yourself from a distance, you gain the power to respond instead of react. Cultivate inner stillness. Take time each day to sit in silence. No distractions, no external stimulation, just you and your thoughts. The more you practice stillness, the more you realize that peace isn't found by going somewhere else, but by being fully present where you are. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." So ask yourself, what are you holding on to that is keeping you bound? Is it the need for approval, the fear of uncertainty, the desire for life to be different than it is? You don't need to change your world to be free. You just need to change how you see it. And when you do, you'll realize you were never trapped to begin with. 5. The silent strength of walking alone. Have you ever sat in a crowded cafe, resisting the urge to check your phone, avoiding the need to scan the room for a familiar face, just sitting there, alone? How did it feel? Awkward? Restless? Maybe even exposed? We live in a world where constant connection is mistaken for meaning, where silence feels uncomfortable, and being alone can seem like failure. But what if I told you that true strength, the kind that no one can take from you, is found in those quiet moments of solitude? Stoicism doesn't teach us to be isolated, but it does remind us that stillness, when embraced, leads to inner freedom. Facing ourselves in solitude. I used to think that being surrounded by people meant I was strong, that my worth depended on recognition, approval, and belonging. But then, on a day of heavy rain, when all my plans were cancelled, I found myself alone. No conversations to fill the space, no distractions to drown out my thoughts, just me sitting in silence. And for the first time, I had to face myself. That's when I realized we are not afraid of being alone. We are afraid of who we might meet when there is no one else around. Who are you when no one is watching? When there's no validation, no criticism, just you and your thoughts. It's in those moments that we uncover our true selves. And surprisingly, when you embrace walking alone, you not only meet yourself, you find an inner strength that is unshaken by the outside world. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." So why do we care so much about what others think? Why do we fear solitude when it is the very thing that allows us to walk our own path rather than being led by someone else's footsteps? How to practice the power of walking alone. Start small. A day without social media. An evening without texting anyone. A quiet walk with no music, no distractions, just you and the world. At first you may feel uneasy, as if something is missing, but in that space you will finally hear your own thoughts, undiluted and clear. Daily reflection. At the end of the day, sit down and write 3 things you felt when you were completely alone. Not what you think you should feel, what you actually felt. Day by day, as the discomfort fades, you'll notice something powerful emerging. Peace. Choose meaningful relationships. Seneca once said, "Associate with those who will make you better, and welcome those you can improve." This is a mutual process. We learn as we teach. When you are strong enough to walk alone, you are also strong enough to choose who walks beside you. A final question: are you living your own life, or the life others expect of you? Dare to walk alone, and you will find that everything you were searching for outside has always been within you. No noise, no pretense, just you and the path you choose. And sometimes it's in solitude that we finally see the way forward. 6. The illusion of freedom. What it really means to be free. When you hear the word freedom, what comes to mind? Maybe it's the ability to travel anywhere, a job where no one dictates your schedule, or the power to speak and act without fear of judgment. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, is that true freedom, or is it just an illusion? Imagine standing atop a mountain, surrounded by open space, no barriers in sight. And yet, your mind is restless, filled with worries about things that haven't even happened. What if I fail? What will people think? Am I making the right choices? You are physically free, yet mentally imprisoned. So, is that really freedom? Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who was once a slave, wrote, "Is freedom anything else than the right to live as we wish? Nothing else." We think freedom is about having more options, more control. But in reality, true freedom isn't just the right to do, it's the ability to let go. letting go of fear, of unnecessary worries, of the invisible chains we place on ourselves. A personal reflection. I once attended a high-stakes meeting. Everything was going smoothly until someone openly disagreed with me. Instantly, I felt a surge of irritation, a need to defend myself, to prove I was right. But then a thought surfaced. Why am I letting this moment control me? Does this really matter? And just like that, I let go. I didn't argue. I didn't react emotionally. And in doing so, I felt something unexpected, relief. It was a simple shift, but in that moment, I realized something powerful. Freedom isn't about winning. It's about not needing to fight in the first place. How to achieve true freedom? Pause and reflect. The next time you feel overwhelmed by anger, anxiety, or frustration, ask yourself 3 questions. Is this within my control? Will my reaction improve the situation? If I let go of this emotion, how would I feel? Most of the things that stress us out are beyond our control. It's not the situation itself that traps us, it's our attachment to it. Slow down. For just one day, step away from distractions. No social media, no rushing from one task to the next. Just observe your thoughts, your surroundings, your breath. When you're no longer consumed by external noise, you'll realize something profound. Freedom isn't about doing more, it's about feeling less burdened. Change your mindset. Seneca once said, "A man is as miserable as he thinks he is." Freedom, happiness, peace, they are not external rewards, they are internal choices. Change the way you see your circumstances, and you will change the way you experience life itself. Imagine this: waking up one morning and feeling no pressure to prove anything, no longer held back by regrets of the past or anxieties about the future. Just living, fully, freely, in the present moment. And the best part? You don't have to go anywhere or become anyone else to find that freedom. It has been within you all along. 7. The paradox of having everything by owning nothing. This idea seems contradictory, doesn't it? Owning nothing, yet having everything. But sometimes, the truths that seem most illogical are the ones that free us the most. We live in a world obsessed with more money, more success, more recognition. But ask yourself, does having more truly make us happier? Stoicism teaches that the poorest person isn't the one with the least, but the one who is never satisfied. Think about it. Is it really the lack of things that burdens us, or the endless craving for them? We chase after society's definition of success, only to feel empty when we finally achieve it. And then, desperate for fulfillment, we search for something else. A new goal, a new possession, a new distraction. But what if the real answer isn't adding more, but wanting less? How do we let go and truly feel fulfilled? Practice negative visualization. Imagine waking up tomorrow and losing everything: your job, your possessions, even your home. Sounds terrifying, right? But pause, breathe. If that happened, what would remain? You would still have your mind, your resilience, your ability to rebuild. You would still have yourself. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, mentally preparing for loss, to remind themselves that true value isn't found in what you own, but in who you are. And the irony: the less you cling to things, the more deeply you appreciate them. Appreciate simplicity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. We believe happiness comes from grand achievements, but often the deepest joy is found in the simplest things: a quiet morning, a warm meal, the presence of someone we love. Yet, in our rush for more, we overlook what we already have. When you no longer need anything external to feel complete, you realize you already have everything. A personal story. I remember the first time I let go of my attachment to possessions. I had spent months saving for the most expensive phone I had ever bought, convinced it would make my life better. But instead of happiness, I found myself constantly distracted, checking notifications, scrolling mindlessly, comparing my life to others. One day, I sold it and switched to a basic phone. At first, I felt like I was missing out. But then, something unexpected happened. I became present. I wasn't pulled into distractions every few minutes. I no longer measured my worth by digital validation. My mind was quieter. My heart felt lighter. I no longer owned that expensive device, but I had something even greater: freedom. Ask yourself this: what is owning you? Maybe it's an object you can't part with, a relationship you're afraid to release, or a dream that no longer aligns with who you are. When you let go, you're not just clearing physical space, you're expanding your soul. Because in the end, letting go isn't about giving up, it's about choosing what truly matters. Owning nothing but having everything doesn't mean rejecting the world. It means fully living in it, unburdened, unchained, free. And when you reach that state, you'll realize you don't need anything else because you already have it all. We've just explored 7 profound ways to let go, release what no longer serves you, and step fully into your own path. Perhaps somewhere in these reflections, you recognized yourself, the moments you fought for control only to feel drained, the times you held on to something long past its time, fearing what might happen if you simply let it drift away. But here's the truth: you don't lose yourself by letting go. You find yourself. You shed the weight of unnecessary burdens, the expectations that were never yours to carry, the fears that kept you trapped. What remains is something lighter, freer, and unshakably strong, the truest version of you. That's the quiet power Stoicism offers to those willing to trust the flow of life, rather than resist it. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences in the comments. What are you ready to let go of? And if you know someone who might need to hear this today, pass it along. Sometimes a single shift in perspective can change everything. Thank you for being here. Remember, true freedom isn't found in holding on, but in knowing when to release, and in doing so, finally allowing yourself to live.